Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 4, facility design. My name is Steve Hilborn, and today what we'll be doing is going through some of the menu psychology portion. Now, I have spoken of this in the past, and maybe I haven't said it to you who are fully remote students, is that while this course has very much to do with how the layout of a facility takes place, we have to look at the menu. We have to look from a food service operation. The menu is our blueprint. It is everything that we need to understand the movement of food within our place. So we have to look at a menu, understand the importance of those, because it will tell us how we buy our food, how we serve our food, how our equipment's laid out, how our service should be laid out, and we don't pay enough attention to it. So we're going to go through some of the psychology portion of this. So basically saying we're going to go through what do people look at from a design standpoint about a menu, and then also how does a customer read the menu, and what are some useful things that we should understand. And this is going to include menu mechanics, the layout, the format, the power of signature items, the power of print and imagery. And then finally, in a separate assignment, you're going to develop, in a separate video as well, you will develop a price fix menu, which is typically it's a 3-course menu where you get an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert, and there might be several different options. So what I'll do is I'll have you pick a theme. So the theme could be a holiday, the theme could be a wedding, an event, it could be a style of food, Italian or seafood, whatever, and then come up with a price fix menu with all of the things that this particular video is going to show you. So you're going to think about your print and your imagery and your layout and all of those lovely things. And it'll be a 1-pager. Okay. So, and also going forward, as we go through this, there's a lot that I can teach you, but the food and beverage industry, it changes every single day. So some of the things that I look at the National Restaurant Association. Now, this is the United States, but they have so much good information, and as they are just our partner to the south, it really applies to us as well. Restaurants Canada, and this will tell you all kinds of wonderful information, surveys of people, what kind of foods they like, what do they like to see, what new ingredients are chefs using, and we really get an idea of the feel of the industry a little bit more when we read some of these things. Some are very small or like infographics that are 1 or 2 pagers. But it'll give you the top 10 new ingredients used. So, or the most impactful dish of 2022. So it'll give you some good ideas of how we may be able to use these things as well. And then Food Tourism 101. I like the culinary tourism aspect of things. I think that there's a huge market for that. And while we all have, our own job interests, I think that is something that is a way of the future. A little bit more so in our area. So now we're going to talk about menu mechanics. So what is menu mechanics? So there's a general menu content and some common categories. Now this is not, as they say, I can't paint all food establishments with this one paintbrush, but this is the most common. So it's always very specific to what you're serving. If you are just a dessert bar, or a nightclub, this probably doesn't matter. But if you serve lunch, dinner, breakfast, these are the general categories that you work with. So the first one is appetizers. Appetizers is French to tease the palate, and they're typically small portions, sharp in taste, and they try to limit to one cooking process, right? So of course you know what appetizers are, but these always try to limit to a single cooking process. So think about that. Then we have soups and salads, which could be hot or cold, should be quick to prepare. And you also want, typically if you have more than one soup, you want to have different styles. So one could be creamy, one could be broth-based. And then as also a good thing is that salads should come in accompaniment sizes as well as entree sizes. So I can have a Caesar salad, but be able to serve it in 3 different ways, like a large family size that 2 or 3 people can eat out of, an individual size, and then also as a side to a main dish. Entrees. Now, this is very much based on what kind of place it is. It is the reason why people actually come, and it could be a selection of different categories. So as an example, if you go to like, I don't know, what's a place everyone knows? Boston Pizza. If you go to a Boston Pizza, they'll have steaks, and they'll have chicken and ribs, and they'll have pastas, and they'll have pizzas, and then sandwiches. And so they have a multiple amount of different categories there, but we could all consider them an entree. And then our side dishes. So we call this the miscellaneous upsell, which I kind of like. From a management perspective, it's really easy to get people to add on different veggies and starches. This could be meat options, so shrimp skewers, and add chicken to salads. And then your sauces, béarnaise sauce or goat cheese brie sauce, and all these lovely things. Good way to make money. And they're usually, $2 for a sauce or $6.99 for a shrimp skewer. It's not so much that turns off the customer. And then finally is dessert. This is the easiest add-on to obtain. So again, we always got to think about revenue generation. So desserts are the easiest add-on. You should have healthy options, and this usually requires suggestive selling and typically a whole nother menu as well. It's very rare that desserts are on the main menus, and really I don't think they should be, other than the price fix menu where you're kind of picking, I'm having A, B, and C, and I'm done. So price fix menus are typically used for events, for weddings, for larger parties, and then we see them a lot in long-term care where they have one choice of two different options. So it could be used either way. So how do you develop or determine your menu item selection? So how do you add or even add items to your menu? And it's not easy. Typically what a lot of people do is that they have features in an already existing restaurant. They'll have a feature, they'll have a special, then they'll get a feel for if the customer likes it. And then come the next menu relaunch or rebrand, you would add that in. Now for us, starting a whole new menu from scratch, we want to balance our proteins. So you want maybe a chicken, some sort of seafood, salmon, shrimp, whatever. You'll want a red meat. You might want a pork, maybe, and you want vegetarian. Now, again, it is very much dependent on what kind of food that you are serving. So if you're a vegan restaurant, you're obviously having no proteins other than maybe tofus and things of legumes, things like that. Vary your cooking styles. So you don't want all of your appetizers going in a deep fryer. You don't want all of your meats being grilled. Think about different ways to cook this food. Start with the entree, and then you complement it with your sides. So start building your whole menu with entrees. And the reason we say that as well is often people will start developing appetizers, and they'll develop this lovely appetizer where, let's say they bring in scallops, and they do bacon wrapped scallops, which might be great. But if they're not using scallops in any other dish on the whole menu, it might be one of those wasteful items. So when we start with our entrees, which is why people come to our place, we start with those. We look at all the different ingredients that we use, and then we can start building appetizers and sides using products that we already use. So we don't want to bring in too many new ones without, ensuring that we're going to have enough sales to warrant bringing in a whole new product. So you want to balance your production across your cooking areas, specialize and keep it simple. So have those signature items that, make you stand out. What are you good at? So there's a bar in town called Kensington's. There's probably like 4 or 5 of them now. Very really up north, Bradford. And they were always kind of like a pub bar. Like there wasn't really much of a theme. And now they said, you know what? Let's just be good at one thing. So they're now Kensington's Burger Bar. And then they were featured on You Gotta Eat Here and a couple other like HGTV or Food Network kind of shows. And they just specialized in what they did, and which is kind of keeping it simple. We have, 15 different burgers on the menu, but they're all burgers. They're all the same style of cooking, a lot of the same ingredients, just different makeups of the burgers. So it kind of worked really well. They specialized in something, but they kept it simple. And then signature items always sell. And there's a reason that people go to places. So if I were in class, what I would do is ask you if you know what all the signature items are for these. As international students, you might not know, because a lot of these are mostly North American. But at the same time, you've been here long enough that you should have an idea. And a lot of these as well, like McDonald's, everyone knows the Big Mac is the signature dish. So I go through all these and give you an idea of what's going on. The Blizzard for Dairy Queen, the Whopper for Burger King, the half-quarter chicken dinner. An English pub always has a shepherd's pie or a fish and chips or a Guinness. They always have a couple things. The Tim Hortons, the double-double. Like, it became an English word in the dictionary based on just so many people ordering the double-double, which I actually think is gross. 2 milk. Remember, if you're late for class, bring me coffee. 2 milk. It helps. Yeah, so it gives you an idea of these are the signature dishes that really drive people to go there. Now, one thing I will say about this, Caesar salad and bread. So if you don't know, Eastside Mario's always had this free Caesar salad and bread. Now, this is one of those things where you often try to develop your own signature dish. So what are we going to be really good at? But sometimes what happens is your customer chooses your signature dish. Right? They chose it for Eastside Mario's. They thought it was going to be some of their pastas or their pizzas or something, their chicken parmesan, something more Italian. Instead, people go there for the Caesar salad and bread, and it's free. So their signature item is actually free. And that's not good for a business. And you'll notice that a lot of those brands have changed, closed down. There's not many left. The price of romaine right now is through the roof. Bread's not necessarily cheap either. So, and it's not like just bread. It's like this garlic infused cheesy bread. It's fantastic. So basically what happens here is that their signature dish is actually something that really kind of has hurt them. And while it does bring people in, it also costs them money and they can't get rid of it because people stop going. People will be upset. So it's one of those things that they're kind of stuck with that one. Signature dishes are often the most popular, profitable, and an entree, but not always, right? So those are some of the things as well. We want our signature dish to make us money, be popular, be profitable. So did you know that it was discovered that customers only spend an average of 110 seconds? And 60 to 70% of your sales will come from less than 18 to 24 items on a over 60 item menu. So you are getting 70% of your sales from about 33% of your menu. So when you think about that, you really got to think, hey, how do I ensure maybe my menu shouldn't be too big, or maybe how do I ensure that I'm getting as much sales as I can for my items that I want? Because if you have a 60 item menu, there's items on there that don't make you a lot of money, and there's some that make you a lot of money. Grilled items are more than 80% of all menus, and the Healthy Choices Act of 2017 now states that there should be an average intake of calories around 2,000. Average fat for an adult should be 66, and that all restaurants over 20 locations must have this information on their menus. And that's why you'll see it all every time you even go through a drive-through. They have all of their nutritional information. What you might not know is that right now they're in the talks of reducing that number from 20 to 6. So if you have 6 restaurants of a brand, now you have to supply nutritional information. That is a job opportunity right there for some of you. You're in food nutrition. You have all these brands who are now going to need to analyze their entire menus. Sounds like a perfect job opportunity. And then they're also, I believe, going to add sodium intake requirements on the menus as well, which will actually kind of shock some people because salt is delicious. Okay, so menu layouts. So when you think about a menu, you must think menu as a concept in itself. So your menu must be reflective of what your concept is, and so should everything on there. So the dishes, the styles of food, the style of service, the pricing, the lettering, the spacing. And as you see here, it should be somewhat reflective of what your concept is. So we'll take a look at this one here. This is like a little coffee shop, but they also have a good food option. So what you see here is that they have come up with this brand. And when you think about a brand, and I've spoken about this before, when you think about a brand, it usually has a couple colors, typically 3, that there are main colors. So Georgian College, green, blue, white, and we know what shades of green and blue. When you think of, let me think here, well, Toronto Maple Leafs, the blue and white. So all sports teams obviously have that brand. When you think about restaurants, I suppose the keg is kind of a red lettering and dark and wood. And it doesn't need to be a color per se. It can also be like a green leaf, like a vegetarian restaurant might be that green leaf, which is a color, but it also represents, it could be like a wood green. So it's a little bit different. But what you see here, they've used, they have like these, I'm assuming a placemat or just a background on a computer, business cards, coasters, cups, menus, they're all reflective. And that's important to show throughout everything that you do in regards to your actual food and beverage operation. Similar here, they're using wood grains, they're using a little off-white, and they have some browns as well. And they show you what they would all look like. This is a CD, in case you young guys don't know. That is no longer used, but as you can see, they have like their backdrops on their iPads and their phone, their menus, the back of the menu, tags they could put on the bottles of wine they sell, their gift cards, all of these things. So when you think about your brand, think about that. When you're thinking about the assignment coming up, try to keep it to a couple different colors or try to create a brand around it, which is very useful if you have a theme. So when you place menu items on a menu, this can affect the sales of each individual item. And we have a lot of different menus that you often see. Now, sometimes you get like these books. They'll drop it in front of you. There's like 9 pages to go through. That's fine. We're not even going to start talking about that because at that point, you can go 3 pages, you can go 12 pages. There's not really a whole lot of design. There is, but it's what I'd like to see is how do we use the minimal amount of space the most effectively? Because people get turned off by having to look through 9 different pages of food items. So single panel, probably the most often used. This is what we're going to do is what we call a single panel. So we're going to use to present limited menu items and special selections, focus on the guest's attention. They're easy to handle. They're built for quick decisions, and they have a particular place of strength, let's call it. So the eyes are focused right to where you see that number 1. So when you pick up a menu like this, this is where you want your entrees because they're the most expensive and will make you probably the most money. And you will direct the customer's eyes to that particular spot. Then they will go up, look at number 2, and then they'll move their way down and look at number 3. And the important thing to understand here is that this is how we look at a one-pager. It's typically look in the middle. We like to decide most customers like to decide what they're going to eat as their main dish, and then see if they want to order an appetizer. And then look down and see if there's anything else that you could have desserts on this as well. Okay, 2-page. So it's very popular. This is forces you to have a balance of appetizers and entrees, and it's better suited to still limited options. So it's not very big, but this would be your common. You open up and you have the 2 sides, and then the outsides would be usually just a menu cover, so the front and the back. You may be able to use the back for some extra space as well, but typically you might put drinks on there, you might put information about the brand, but you wouldn't put your food, because most people, when they open the menu, they expect everything I'm looking at, this is where all the food is. So this is the 2-page menu eye flow. So again, your eyes will go right here, and then they'll move up and follow this kind of option. So this has been tested through and through. They have scientists watch people do this. This is where they spend their attention. And like I said, 110 seconds, 2 minutes, not a lot of time. So they'll take 2 minutes to look through this, and they might not even make it down here before they make a decision. So again, you want your money, either your signature items, the ones that make you the most money, The ones that you want to sell should be here and here. This is your appetizer area. This could also be an appetizer area, but it could be soups, salads. It could be some like sandwiches or smaller plates, but usually your entrees would exist here. And this could also be entrees, or I suppose you could do desserts. Again, I like to remove that on a separate menu by itself. Nobody knows they want dessert until after they've eaten. So I like to bring a small coffees, teas, and desserts on a single menu. And the next one is the 3-panel. So there's the single panel, the double panel, or 2-panel, which is technically 3 if you have the back, and a 3-panel, which actually has 5 when you think about it. So menu items are often placed in a logical sense, reading left to right. Most threefold menus will have appetizers and salads on the left, entrees and mains in the middle, sides, desserts, beverages on the right. It gives you an idea of what this would look like. And again, these are some of your money spots. So the eyes go a little bit different here. They are, again, you always kind of notice the same theme. They go to where the entrees are, middle page or the right-hand page, and kind of center. This one here is looking at more entrees, and then appetizers, see what they want for appetizers, soups, salads, and then they go check out the rest. And you can kind of see their stronger parts. Top left is always stronger, it seems, than bottom right, and the middle is always the strongest. So if I want to put soft drinks on here for some reason, it's going down here. You know, if I want them to follow me on Facebook, it's probably going down here because I don't make any money for them to do that. That kind of stuff. Now, as I mentioned before, this panel here can fold in. So on that back side, that's always a good place for special events, your seasonal rotations, your features, your specials, promoting events. And then this one will close up and that'll be the cover. Next slide. A couple tips and tricks to have the customers order what you want them to. So the first few items in a list and the last are the most frequently ordered. It does not matter what you put in there. Again, backed by science, the first 2 or 3 items and the last one. So if you have a list of 20 things, you know, 1, 2, 3, and 20 will be your most popular items ordered, regardless if it's like a anchovy salad. They're just ordered that way. Popular items in the middle, profitable items on the top and bottom. So because if the first few are always going to be ordered, your ones that are just generally popular, you don't need to waste those ones because popular doesn't necessarily mean that they're profitable. So you put the popular ones in the middle somewhere, you put the profitable items on the top and the bottom. What we also like to do is shade, use icons, graphics, underlining, maybe a splash of color. Use these tools to highlight specific items. They're what we call eye magnets, but it just gets us looking at different things on a menu. Make sure you're mobile friendly and that your menu translates well to an Apple or an iPhone as well as on a computer. And then offer different portion sizes, such as lunch, dinner, or starters and entrees. And then finally, package a meal is always a good idea as well. The Keg had great success and still does with the classic dinners, which you get a salad and an entree. So I'm just bringing this up because it gives you an idea of a couple different menus here. So the one on the right first, this is what I would call a bad menu. So first of all, this is just the pizza list. This is probably just a portion of that particular menu. And there's nothing wrong with the top, and they're saying what the sizes are. There's nothing wrong with this little graphic. It's a pepperoni pizza. And I don't love the pricing, the $10.99, $9.99. I don't like the 99 because it gives the illusion of it being cheap. But basically the biggest issue is that they're all just in this big list. There's nothing breaking them apart. You might read the first couple, you might read the last. Like I said, you might not get into these middle ones. Also with this lunch special here, it doesn't show quality. This is dinner, this is lunch. Let's have separate menus for them. Let's not try to save a piece of paper or whatever they're trying to do here. Remove this, have all these out here. You can put more graphics in. You can separate these lists somehow, make it look a little bit better. Whereas in the one on the left has done that. So they have the similar amount of items. So they have 16 items on this particular one. Sorry, 12. That's about it. But what they've done is they separate them into 3 lists of 4. So you never really get lost in there, right? The first couple and the last. So you will read all 4 of these. You'll go over here, read all 4 of these. They have little icons that they kind of use to pop this out. They've broken up a couple of different options that they have here. They have some good graphics, good color schemes. It's woods, it's yellows, it's reds, and it's whites. That's what it is. Again, I don't really, all of this stuff I don't love. I think it's a bit of a waste of space, but this seems to work well for them, and they have some good imagery as well as even kind of, this is more of an online menu, but they're also showing where their locations are and different things that they can do. Now, the power of print. So the power of print in imagery and menus. I'll try to speed this up, guys. Sorry if I'm going too long on it. I could talk about this for hours and hours. So often what happens is that menu design is not left to the people who should be doing it. So graphic designers may design a menu, but they have little to no knowledge of how people order food. What are the costs? What are the contribution margins for our meals, which is how much money we make? That's our profit. And how we want these all kind of laid out. So it has to be a combination of both, or with today's information and tools that are available to us, a restaurant manager can be a graphic designer with a little bit of training, which we will do a little bit this week. So the power of print is the first one. So you have to think about your different styles of text, including the color and the size. So the power of print, when you think about an old-time diner, like, they have Coca-Cola signs and old signs of, the good old days, and they're selling an old-fashioned hamburger, then you think, okay, what kind of text should I use for an old-fashioned hamburger? Now, I always ask the class which one they think is best. And I would probably ask you to try to highlight here which one you think is going to be the best that represents old-fashioned hamburger. Typically what people say is that some of these like this first one, top right. Some like the red because it's just red and that kind of depicts some of that old diner style. But this bottom left one is usually the one they like the most. This is too old-fashioned. This is too big, too plain. Bold is not necessary. And people don't seem to like it. So it's generally that one, but it gives you an idea of, I can say the same thing, but which one draws the eye a little bit more. A couple helpful hints. Try not to go lower than a 12-point font. It's very hard to read. And stick to 3 different types of fonts. So you have one for headings, for the actual menu, and one for the descriptor. So my heading is appetizers. My menu item is the smoked bacon quesadillas. And the descriptor is in italics, it looks like. So it's smoked bacon quesadillas and descriptors. You don't want to go too many words, 10 to 15, but slow smoked brisket, jack and cheddar cheese, pico de gallo, ancho sour cream, and avocado. Sounds great. So readers' preferences is 12 to 14 for the main heading. 8, 9, and 10 for secondary. Single type style can be monotonous. So if it's all the same style of font, you kind of get lost. So you want to break that up. So the headings are the names and course names. And so these are dividing of categories. Then you have the menu items and then the copy. So it could be called copy. It could be called romance copy. It is basically just a description of what we are talking about in a menu and how are we selling it. So there's a couple things about description that we would like to say. We try to limit to about 10 words or fewer, leave some room for imagination, and you want to talk about a bunch of different things. So certain words have more power. So if you use fried, so fried is typically something that we relate to being unhealthy. So you can also say hand battered. We know that hand battered piece of fish or chicken is going to go into a deep fryer. But when I said it's hand-battered chicken fingers versus fried chicken fingers, it just sounds better. And it also shows an imagery of somebody taking time and effort of cutting and slicing and organizing the fish and doing a flour wash and then an egg wash and then a batter, as opposed to I ordered this frozen from a box and now I'm just going to throw it in a greasy old deep fryer, right? It just changes the branding of that. Descriptive copy could include some of the following. So essentially, not essentially, the essential main ingredients. So depending on what you are looking at, if it's a piece of protein, you typically want to include the grade. So USDA prime or AAA. It could be the amount, 7 ounce, 9 ounce, a rack of ribs, like how much. And then also maybe the cut. So if it's a sirloin, a strip loin, a filet, prime rib, whatever. It could be the method of preparation, so how you made it. How's it served? What comes with it? Often what we do is we like to have something that says all entrees are served with seasonal vegetables, starch your choice, etc. And it also could be a geographic or a variety. So where am I getting my oysters from? Is this Ontario duck? We need to know these certain things. And people like to know that. And the more you can tell about it and the more quality that you can ensure by having the proper descriptor, the more that you can charge. What comes with the entree? Not a question you want to hear, so make sure you always have a section, of course, talking about that. And then using those keywords, right? So I have a lot of information here. As an example, a house banana split, sweet bananas with warm chocolate cake and vanilla ice cream. Sounds actually great. Like it sounds nice. But a Tahitian banana split with caramelized bananas, molten dark chocolate cake, and homespun Tahitian vanilla ice cream sounds much better, right? So here's some descriptor words. I won't get into it too much here, but review the PowerPoint as needed when you start going into this stuff. So when we start using the actual menu space, so we're starting design, we came up with a couple different cool options and a couple different nice menu items. So how do we place this on the space that we're allotted? So blank space is referred to white space, and it can actually be very beneficial. So we are about balance. We want enough that we're not wasting any space, but not too much where it doesn't feel cluttered. So this right here is just a white background. One sentence. People read this easily, they understand it, and they move on. If you look at any TELUS ads, they use the white space very well. Now the next slide, as it's saying here, has no white space, or virtually no. And it's very difficult to read this. And I often say, can you go through and read it? And I'll have students in class start reading this. And then usually about the second or third sentence, they just kind of give up. They just think, yeah, I'm not going to read what's going on there. If there was important information in here somewhere, most people would probably overlook it. They'd skim through it, or they wouldn't even get to it. So photos. So often people say don't use photos because they have an expectation. So sometimes the photos are good. And you'll notice that people will order the items more often when they have a photo in there, hands down. Fine dining typically never has photos. Family friendly, kind of casual, yes, they often do. Quick service almost always does because you want to know what it's going to look like. Now, the problem with photos is this. What you get versus what you think is not the same. So, quick service, something like McDonald's, they don't really care because after you have purchased, you are mostly gone before you've realized what it looks like, right? So most dining, let's be honest, most quick service fast food is done through a drive-through. That's the majority of their sales, and people aren't eating that food. Rarely do people sit in the store and eat that food. It's probably less than 30% of their sales are in-house dining, which is why you're seeing a lot of quick service restaurants not even have a dining room anymore, and they're just a drive-through. So here's the Big Mac. Looks horrible. Their Burger King, same thing. This is the most attractive angle with cheese and slightly fluffed up. Not very good. Taco Bell, this is what they are selling. This is what you actually get. as you can see, in a sit-down style restaurant, your photo better be, the actual dish better mimic that photo, better look like it. So ensure you're taking a photo of something that is easily produced and easily able to look as good as it actually is. Okay, so when it comes to pricing, here's a couple things I want you to understand. There is value and there's price, and they're not the same thing. So price is the amount of money that we charge, but value is the perceived worth of that. So as an example, if you were to have a sale on a TV, it's $400 TV and it's on sale for $150. That's awesome value. I paid $150, but my value proposition, it feels like I have $400 worth of goods, which is great. So there's a couple things that we need to understand about value, though. So the use of a dollar sign is almost the worst symbol you can use because everybody knows that they're spending money to buy it. You don't really need a dollar sign to show them that they're going to spend that, and then we don't like to remind them. $9.99, the 99 cents is budget. It's cheap. It's a thrift. But it doesn't belong on a nice menu. Quick service, fine. You'll notice everything in quick service and Walmart, it's $6.99, not $7. We all know, we don't even use pennies anymore. We all know it's $7. So I would rather order something quality versus cheap. And majority of people in regards to what they're ordering for food want that as well. 95 cents is said to be much friendlier and sometimes like nostalgic. Same with 50 cents or 25. So if you're thinking about like a soda, like you're selling a pop, $2 isn't enough to sell a pop for. $3 seems really pricey. Then you can sell it for $2.50. Something along those lines. But for the most part, stay away from dollar signs. Stay away from 99 cents. And what we can do is look at them like this. So if it's $14, you can just display it as 14. Sometimes people want to see a period or a dash, something to complete it. So you can say 14 with a period or 14 dash. These symbols have no negative effect, and it's just kind of like a completion symbol. And try not to align all of your prices in one list, because we're comparative. Like we will look at that list and we'll find the most expensive and the least expensive within moments of each other. And then the last couple things here, boilerplate information. So don't forget this. So this could be your address, your telephone number, hours of operation, special services, your Facebook and social media information, your website, telephone, like all of these things should be on your menu somewhere. Usually that back page that we talked about is a good place for it. But if you're only a single, you might just want to include a couple little things on the bottom. In terms of our assignment today, the price fix, I wouldn't worry about the boilerplate information. And then finally, some colors. So again, like I mentioned, they typically have 3 different colors. Colors also have a meaning outside of brand. So red is typically spicy. Gold and silver could be high-end or quality. Green is healthy or it's vegetarian. So use those colors outside of your brand where you think you should. And the last slide here is just to remember the primacy and recency theory. So basically, or primacy. So basically, imagery. Our brain is weird. Our brain scans and ignores 1 million marketing messages a day. And there's things that make us stop and recognize something. So as I mentioned before, a big white space, sometimes our brain will stop and say, oh, okay, let's look at that. Because it just kind of makes your eyes go to that. It tells your brain to stop scanning and throwing out this information and stop and soak it in. We wouldn't have, if you stopped and read every single advertisement that you saw throughout the day would be gone. You couldn't get through life. So that's what it does. So make sure you use those eye magnets to your own benefit when you're developing a menu. And it could be any of these things, or it could be sustainability stuff or 100-mile diet, you name it. So that's it. What you can do now is if you made it to the part of this particular PowerPoint and video, you should be ready to go on and complete your assignment. So under assignments and tests, there'll be another video explaining how we're going to develop the price fix menu. And what I'll also do is go through and show you what Canva is and a little bit of background on how to get started on that. Good luck, and as I mentioned before, this will be due Sunday before midnight.